Hello all and welcome to my 500 sub special Q&A. So firstly, before we go any further, I must thank everybody and anybody who has ever interacted with me in any way, shape or form on YouTube, whether it be just a like or a comment, or you are indeed one of those 500 plus people that has decided to hit that subscribe button and blow my mind in helping me get way quicker to 500 subs than I ever could have imagined. So literally, thank you all. So for the 500 sub special, I thought to myself I'd like to do a Q&A, give people a chance to ask me a question, and I put it to my Twitter. I put it on my Twitter feed. I said, 500 sub special, I'd like to do a Q&A. Please post your questions here. And I was hoping to get at least 10 questions, and I've actually ended up with 15. So I'm actually really pleased with that as well. Thank you to everybody who's asked a question. All the question askers will have any channel link, if they do have a channel, put in the description below. If they don't have a channel, they do have a Twitter handle, and I will put that in the description below as well, as a thank you to them for indeed asking me a question and making this 500 sub special possible. So, must address the game on screen. It is Gears of War 4, a game I've literally put over 1,000 hours into. You can check my stats page, I've actually done it, but I haven't actually played it for a long while. It's just because I'm an off-screen YouTuber, I thought I would use the game as visuals. I'm only playing on casual, and I'm playing as my scout with maxed out level 6 health boost and health regeneration boost cards, making them quite invincible for quite a few waves. I've also changed the pickup distance, which you normally have applied because you're part of a team and your job is to collect the credits, to shotgun damage, so I've made her quite deadly as well. So getting through a few waves, hopefully without dying, shouldn't be a problem. The only thing you have to be fearful of is getting grenade tagged. That is game over for you. I've already changed the map to Foundation as well. That's going to be a good little map to use. So anyway, let's crack on with the game, and let's indeed crack on with the questions. So the very first question I was asked was by a good friend of mine, and that is Pete Fighter 2. Obviously, Pete Fighter 2 has his own channel too, plenty of pickups, plenty of VR responses he gets involved with, does love to promote the smaller YouTuber as well. He's a real gem within the YouTube community, is Pete, so please do check out Pete's channel. Now, Pete asked me, he says, I always cite my achievement that I'm most proud of is the one from Quake 4 for getting through a level without taking any damage. So what's yours? Now, Pete obviously knows that I'm a big into achievement hunting. It doesn't take a genius to work that out from my channel, to be honest. So he's obviously gone for the achievement route in his question. Now, I have to be honest with you, when I first got my Xbox, the achievement system is something that really drew me in from day one. I was absolutely hooked on it. So as you can imagine, when I first got a game, I was into getting every achievement available possible. So the achievement that I actually cite as one of my most proudest for was actually the one that led to me getting my first completion ever. And that was on one of the first games that I ever owned, and it was indeed in PES 2011. Yes, a PES game, a cheap generic sports title in today's market, but the achievement I'm proud of getting, which got me my 1000G completion, is because I'm a guy that doesn't like online competitive. I mean, when I play online, I play in teams, which is why I love Horde mode in Gears. So to be tasked with some online achievements in PES, and one of them to be win 75% of your last matches online, to be faced with that achievement and want the completion, was a little bit of a tall order for me. It took a lot of work because I would have to find a team that I was comfortable using. I mean, yeah, I went for Brazil, hardly edged my bets there, but it took a while to obviously get used to the gameplay and the styles, and not just playing the computer sort of game in, game out. You had to really think about your strategy, and it was then that I realised that I had to tweak my formation, I had to make some changes within my lineup and things like that. And then not only I have to do that, but then I still have to actually win 75% of my last matches, and that wasn't easy. Because winning 75% of your last matches, I basically worked out, was winning 15 out of your last 20 without fail. And you cannot draw. Oh no, you have to win. I thought it might be just not lose. Nope, you have to win. So the day that I actually did that, I remember I got to about 11 and then I lost the game and then I drew a game, and I was thinking, Christ, please do not screw this up because I might start knocking wins off the last 20 that I played. But when I eventually done that and eventually got that achievement, which was the last one I needed, and got the completion, I was so proud of it. And to be honest with you, it's still one of the toughest achievements that I've actually unlocked to this date, I would seem. I would think. And I've unlocked a lot. So yes, thank you for your question, Pete. That was a pleasure to remember, actually, unlocking that moment. It was really proud. Okay, so the next question comes from Sean of Retro Games Revive. Now, Sean is another good buddy of mine, another great member of the community, one of the most generous men on YouTube that I have ever known, or I do know. And Sean also does lots of pickups, collects for the PS2, very knowledgeable on his PS2, gets involved with VR responses, is the only person to have VR responded to every VR response video that I have done as well. So well done, Sean, for that. Now, Sean asked me if I can just shoot these shockers so that I can actually read the question. Sean asked me if you could meet any person within the gaming industry, dead or alive, who would it be? Now, I originally thought that I wasn't going to be able to answer this question because I'm not one of those people that is too into meeting developers and things like that. So I thought, well, how am I going to answer this question? And then it just suddenly came to me, and I just thought, well, the clue's in what I'm playing, but not actually this game. The original trilogy of Gears of War, the creator, Cliff Bleszinski, I hope I pronounced that properly. Now, I've watched a lot of documentaries on the original Gears trilogy and stuff like that, and I would love to talk to him, get into his head about the ideas, why he thought of Gears, how he thought of Gears, how some of the characters came to his mind, you know, how he created Marcus Phoenix and things like that. Just really just go to town on him, asking about that original Gears trilogy, because I loved them that much. So yeah, if I could meet anyone within the gaming industry, it would be Cliff. It really would, and just talk Gears to him all night, all day, all night. I absolutely could. So yes, thank you for your question, Sean. And that is my answer. Okay, third question, I do believe, is from another good friend of mine on the tubes, and that is TheRetroBear. Nath also is another great member of the community. Again, another one who does plenty of pickups, collects for a multiple of systems as well, and is another very responsive person in the VR responses that I do as well. I can't fault Nath at all. He's just a great guy. Now, Nath asked me two questions and said I could pick one, but I am going to answer both of them. He said, what classic game series from your childhood would you reboot and who would you want to do it? Now, I'm not really concerned on who I'd want to do it, because, do you know what, as long as a reputable developer did it and made a good job of it, then I would be happy. But a game that hasn't had a game for a long while, and in this sort of era of reboots, reimaginings, and what that we are having a lot of as well, it's quite hard to find a game or for a game to jump out at me straight away. But after I sat down and thought about it for a while, I just thought we haven't had a Shinobi game for a very long time. And the Shinobi games are brilliant. They are absolutely amazing. They are classics, and I love them. And in fact, the Game Gear port is actually unique to the Game Gear as well, and that is an absolutely cracking little game as well. I love that to pieces. So if I could have a game rebooted or even just remade, then I would actually say, let's have a Shinobi. It's been far too long since we've had a Shinobi. Nathan also did ask me, are there any games that you are really bad at? This one's easy for me. Now, I always say to people that I really enjoy racing games, but I suck at them. And if I'm a little bit less critical of myself, some of them I'm okay at. But ones that I really, really do suck at are rally games. I absolutely am terrible at them. Cannot control the carb, can never get a good time. Even on easy, I'm often coming last. And I still really enjoy playing Sega Rally. I absolutely adore Sega Rally and could play it for hours upon hours. But am I any good at it? No. I really do suck at rally games. So that is your answer to that one, Nath. Okay, so the next question comes from another good buddy of mine. They are really racking up, aren't they? It's Eddie of Rollerxcore. Now, Eddie is just a great guy. He is just super knowledgeable on so many consoles. A lot of people I can say, oh, this guy's knowledgeable on this and this. But with Eddie, he just seems to know a lot about everything. Has one of the most amazing collections I have seen, and does great pickups videos, and his animals are actually a little bit of the stars within themselves within his videos. They are absolutely hilarious and brilliant. So yeah, Eddie is a great guy. So Eddie's question is, if I can get into a little bit of cover before we read this out. Eddie's question is, what was the single achievement that has taken the longest to get for you? Now, when I first read this question, I thought, well, I could just start going look through them all and find the ones that literally do take time. Like there's an achievement in FIFA for playing 100 hours on the pitch, which I know I have unlocked. So I could easily come with that. But the way I'm going to adapt your question, Eddie, is I'm going to turn it into which one felt like it took the longest to get. And that, literally, every time people talk about achievements that took you ages to get, there is one that always pops into my mind straight away. And that is when I had Street Fighter 4, or Super Street Fighter 4, one of the many iterations that it turfed out on the 360. And there is an achievement on it for, what is it? Achievement on it for unlocking all the colours for every character. Now, to unlock a colour for a character, all you had to do was simply play as them, and you unlock one colour. But the roster was huge, and every character had 10 colours. So, yes, as you can imagine, that took a long time to just even play as a character. And I started doing it, and I worked out a way of making it quicker, and I thought, right, well, I can make this quicker by making the games, or making the fights, one round, deliberately losing, pressing continue, picking the same character until I've gone through and got all 10 colours with that character. But even that took ages. It took absolutely ages. Felt like forever. And once I got through all the characters, which is probably got me 20 plus characters, and the achievement finally unlocked, I was just like, thank God that's over. And do you know how much that achievement was worth? 10G. All that for 10G. So as far as achievements that took a long time to get, even though some may have theoretically taken longer time, they certainly didn't feel as long as that. So yes, that is my answer, Eddie, to your question in which achievement felt like it took the longest, or did take the longest. Okay, next question from the very first person to ever shout me out, and definitely deserves a special mention in me achieving 500 subs, and that is Russ TheRetroBear. Again, he just has one of those voices where he can make a video talking about one game for an hour, and I could quite happily sit there and listen to and have the time fly by. His pickups are, in my eyes, legendary. I absolutely love them. And the Retro Bear, he asked me if you could be one video game character, not from Gears of War, which character would you be and why? He knows me well. He knows me well. He knows I love Gears. Here we are. And the reason why he asked that is probably because he thinks I'm going to pick a Gears of War character straight away. But the truth being is, look at the situation I'm in. Would I want to be a character that has been forced into this situation and these sorts of wars? Not really. So I had a little bit to think about it, and I tried to be serious and thought, well, what's a good world to live in and things like that. And I thought, nah, don't be serious. Don't be serious. If you could be Sonic for a day, wouldn't that just be awesome? Big Sega fan. Sonic's cool. Sonic's fast. Why would you not want to be Sonic for a day, even if it was just imaginary? So yes, I don't want to live in one of these war-torn worlds where we're taking on grubs, and as you'll see here, taking on these little fellas here. So these robots, these shockers that everything just wants to kill you. Why would I want to be in this Gears of War world? So yeah, why not be super fast and super cool and just be Sonic for a day? So next question comes from Flickering Pixels. I believe these guys are relatively new on the tubes, and I haven't had time to check out their channel completely just yet, but it was recommended to me by the wonderful Tamaracade, and it was a recommendation from her. Then I'm certainly going to check the channel out. And Flickering Pixels asked me, if you could live in one gaming world, what would it be? It wouldn't be Gears of War. We've just touched on that. So what gaming world would I live in? Well, that's a tough one, because a lot of gaming worlds are obviously they're quite perilous, as proved on screen now. So where would I want to live within a gaming world? One of my answers that I thought of was actually, obviously, I'm a bit of a theme park junkie, and especially roller coaster junkie. I love theme parks, so I was just thinking, well, wouldn't it be cool if I could just live in theme park world? That'd be great, just non-stop roller coasters. But then I thought, if anybody plays theme park like I did, and you get a little bit bored, you start making roller coasters where they throw the guests off them out the park upside down and things like that. So I could end up in a situation like that. So to answer your question, I'd like to live in theme park world, but preferably run by somebody who takes the game seriously, and because I don't want to die. Not quite ready for that yet. Okay, so on to the next question after finishing quite grimly on that. The next question comes from Chris Retro48K. Chris is another off-screen YouTuber like me, but his content is absolutely brilliant. Does a lot of gameplay, a lot of VR responses, pickups videos, gets involved in the community heavily. Great guy, Chris Retro48K. Now, he kind of asked two questions as well, and I'm going to accept them both too. The first one was, what do you think is the most underrated and overrated consoles? Now, thinking about overrated was tough, but thinking about underrated came to me, I think, pretty quickly. Because when people talk about what they collect for, for me, I'm going for the full set of the Xbox 360. I'm also collecting a large amount of PlayStation games. I'm also collecting for the Dreamcast in the future when I finally sort out getting a Dreamcast. But when I hear of people collecting, I know people collecting for the PlayStation 2 and for other PlayStations, for people collecting for Nintendo and things like that. But no one I ever hear. Have you ever heard anybody say I'm going for the full PSP set, the original PSP I'm talking about here? And I just honestly think the original PSP, is an absolute beast of a handheld. It's a cracking little handheld. Has so many stellar games for it, and yet no one actually or no one I know. I mean, if you do collect for the PSP seriously and are actively seeking going for a full set, then please by all means comment below. But I never really hear of anybody sort of really going for the PSP and it being their main focus, even if they are collecting for it. So I really do think that the PSP is superbly underrated. But as for overrated, now, when I was growing up, I was a Sega kid. I was a Sega fanboy. I'm not into fanboyism, but I was a fanboy of Sega. I had Game Gear, Mega Drive, Master System, and Dreamcast. Saturn kind of missed me by. I went PlayStation 1 in that sort of phase. So it'd be quite easy for me to pick on a Nintendo console because I don't really know them. There's that to it as well. But the more deeply I thought about every Nintendo, I realised that there's a core of games for each console that is actually really good. And then, so I kind of started thinking, well, what about consoles that never really succeeded that well? I know the Saturn didn't do too great. Obviously, the commercialisation of it when it first started wasn't brilliant and helped in its downfall. But even that is not underrated or overrated at all because it is a great little machine. I pick on things like the Jaguar potentially and things like that, but even that has a few games and it has its fan base. So I honestly don't think there's any mainstream console, to be honest with you, that I could really tag with going, yeah, that's overrated, because I think I would be being harsh on it. So that is, it might be a bit of a cop-out answer, yeah, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, I really don't believe there is a console that is too overrated. And then Chris does also ask, as a second question, as I just let me sort the studio out, go away. Chris does also ask, and if you ever, let me stop you there, Chris, when I reach a million gamer score, will you start a PS trophy version? No, basically, is the short, quick answer to that, because I have spent 9 years so far getting the gamer score that I have got now. Arguably, it has now become easier than it ever has done to get gamer score. I will admit that. But once I get to 1 million gamer score, I'm not going to start the PlayStation. I've basically made a commitment in getting gamer score over getting trophies, and to be honest with you, I love getting gamer score as well. I've always been an Xbox guy over PlayStation. That is just my preference. There's nothing wrong with PlayStations, but to then go into trophies and actively, passionately do the trophy system like I've done with the achievement system, it's just not for me. Once I get to 1 million gamer score, I already have an idea floating around in my head for what to do beyond the million gamer score. There's a sort of a sub-setting way of getting gamer score again, which I am very tempted to then start once I get to a million gamer score. But that's going to take a couple of years. So I will play PlayStation games. I will enjoy playing PlayStation games, and I will get trophies as they unlock naturally. But it's not something I'm going to be actively seeking to do once I've got to a million gamer score. So that is your answer to that one. Okay, the next question comes from SNRP 2010. Now, he's very active on Twitter, very active in the retro gaming community, so I will put a link to his Twitter handle in the description below. And it says SNRP 2010 asks me, what is your guilty pleasure game? Now, again, this is another one that I found tough to answer as such, because there is no single game that I would say that is a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. However, I reckon there are some games that can be generalised perhaps into being guilty pleasures. Now, when they first came out, I would say that Guitar Hero wasn't a guilty pleasure. It was very popular at the time, and people used to, a group of us would actually sort of go around each other's house and have a few beers and play some Guitar Hero. But I actually still enjoy playing Guitar Hero to this day, and I'm quite happily to play it solo on my own. And I think of that as potentially being a bit of a guilty pleasure. But Guitar Hero is good, so is it a guilty pleasure? I'll let you be the judge of that. Also, I enjoy playing Kinect games, and that can be considered a little bit of a guilty pleasure. But then again, only certain games within the Kinect, and the certain games that I play that are considered guilty. There are certain games within Kinect that are considered guilty pleasures aren't ones that I would naturally gravitate towards if I wasn't into achievement hunting. So, can I really call that a guilty pleasure? I'm not sure. But then again, this achievement hunting thing that I do, getting gamer score like I do, it involves playing a lot of bad games and games that I wouldn't normally touch for gamer score. So you could really make an argument that achievement hunting in itself just leads to you having many a guilty pleasure in gaming, because you end up playing bad games or games that you just don't like or wouldn't like because there is an easy completion. So I would have to say my guilty pleasure is bad games for easy completion. I just enjoy the gamer score that I get out of them. Okay, so the next question, while we have a little break here, is from Scott's Game Asylum. Now, Scott does some absolutely cracking reviews on his channel. They are so in-depth, so well produced, and so well put together. Honestly, just watch some of his game reviews. They are fantastic. Now, Scott actually is the first, and I think maybe the only person to ask specifically a YouTube question. And he says, what channels inspire you to make content? So I'll start off with basically the channels that got me into making content, because my YouTube account is like 10 years old, but I never started making YouTube content myself, or really want to start making YouTube content myself, until pretty much the start of 2019. And I got into watching a lot of YouTube, believe it or not, because I used to have a lot of trouble with my mental health issues and my anxiety of sleeping. So I used to watch a lot of YouTube basically in bed on my phone, and used it to distract my mind into helping me get tired. And then when I felt tired, then I would stop watching YouTube and I would be able to go to bed. And it was a strange technique, but it works. And that was where this is basically leading into me finding out there was this whole gaming community on YouTube that I had no idea really existed. People making fantastic documentaries, doing Let's Plays, doing pickup videos and things like that. And one of the very first channels that I really discovered and really started to enjoy and really started to regular watch was actually Brian of Sin Spaces. And yes, one of his most famous videos was the Saving Sonic Statues video, which still to this day pulls in thousands of views for him. And it is a great watch. It deserves to pull in 1,000 views for. And so I was attracted to Brian's channel through watching those videos and then learning that he was a former Sega employee. And I thought, this guy's going to have a few stories to tell. And sure enough, he does. And some of the footage I've seen of him that he's been able to provide when he used to work for Sega as well has been real fun to watch. Please don't grenade tag me. And I really enjoyed watching Brian's content. And that was just one of the first of many channels that started getting me into watching YouTube regularly and gaming YouTube regularly. And again, inspiring me to then one day, well, to this day where I'm now making content. I mean, great documentary creators like Kim Justice, one of the very first I watched making documentaries. She used to make obscure football title documentaries, still does, and wrestling as well. Another category I'm into. I watch a lot of wrestling content on YouTube as well. So you could argue people like Kim Justice have inspired me to do a little bit of YouTube as well. And so just discovering this whole community, people like Trista Bias is what a lovely person she is. And the channels I then discover a lot closer to this time, like I then enjoy watching people like Sorax Space, who makes the funny reviews on YouTube, period to me. Angry Video Game Nerd is good, but a lot of his is shouting, and it didn't really inspire me to make content. I just was amused by it. So, but what really now inspires me to make content was, because I was originally just going to become an achievement channel. It was going to be something to do, but I was picked up, like I said earlier, TheRetroBear gave his very first shout out on the channel. And it was just because I decided, I am going to make one pickup video, because I've been to the London game market. I'm going to make a pickup video. And I'd actually made a Shabok pickup video when I got a really good deal out Spog, and I thought, oh, this is the sort of video where people make a pickup video of it because they've had a really good deal out of it. So I did, and he picked me up on it, and he then gave me a shout out, and I picked up more people, more YouTube creators then, or smaller YouTubers found me for his shout out. I found them. They were doing the same sort of stuff, and I ended up branching out into basically my retro side of things coming out, and the fact that, you know, I'm making pickup videos and doing the VR thing came along and just things like that. So now I'm kind of inspired by the community that I am in and the people that I call my friends. I can rattle off a whole list of names. Some of them have already been mentioned, like Eddie of Rollerxcore. We've got Pete, who's already been mentioned. Nave's already been mentioned. We've got Sean, Retro Games Revive. Of course, RetroBear I've just mentioned. Danester, Scott, Glory Hunter, not 82 anymore. Wishwash, 2EUK, Jimmy Retro. These just all of these names now without thinking, and being part of this community just inspire me to keep making content now because I just have a large friendship base within the community. So that was quite a long answer, but you know, that is exactly what it is and how it is and what it is now. It's just absolutely brilliant, this community that I am part of. So anyway, we're going to move on to the next question now as we start fresh wave. So I'm going to get absolutely hoarded in a minute, but then again, that is the name of the mode. Geeky Nate. Geeky Nate is, do you know what? He done a series recently, and he got other YouTubers involved, and they were talking about their favourite games within genres of games. And do you know what? It's criminally underviewed. He puts a lot of love and effort into the videos he makes, and he is well regarded in the community on both YouTube and on Twitter by several people because he got other YouTubers involved in these videos and they all took part and they were all brilliant in it as well. He does unboxing. I believe he's into Pokemon as well. He's just a great guy with great content. Please do take time to check Geeky Nate out. He deserves more subs than he's got as well, just for the effort alone that he puts in. Anyway, Geeky Nate asked me, if you could have any movie turned into a video game, which one would you choose? And what game genre would you want for it? Now, as soon as I read this question, I thought, well, this is going to be a little bit on the tricky side because, as you can imagine, a lot of movie games do get tied in. And a lot of superhero stuff, pretty much anybody that's anybody within the superhero or the Marvel industry kind of gets a game as well. And I thought long and hard about it. And I started thinking about, well, what do I like? I am a big horror movie fan. I really enjoy horror movies. So as you can imagine, Nate, the genre here is going to pick itself. And I just thought, what horror movie hasn't been made that I would love to see made? Now, my favourite horror movie franchise of all time is the Saw franchise. And there's already 2 games that I played. Only one out of the 2 of those games. And I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really good game. And then I thought, well, after Saw, what is it after Saw? It's Friday the 13th. But as we know, we've had many a game on Friday the 13th. We've had some 8-bit games made for Friday the 13th. And one very recently as well. I do also like Halloween, but I guess that would just end up being a reskin of the recent Friday the 13th game. And then it came to me, I also do very much like and think would make a really good game the Child's Play films. And I'm talking, way, go in with your buzzsaw. And I am talking about the original ones. If you go back to the original Child's Play, not the reboot or the reimagining, which was called Child's Play, but to me wasn't a Child's Play film, but was still a good film. That's a story for another day. Let's not go off on a RetroBear tangent. So yes, I think the original Child's Play film would make a great survival horror. And by saying survival horror, I mean you're not going to play it as Chucky. I think you should play it as the young boy Andy Barclay, who obviously is the first person and the only person to know that Chucky is possessed by a serial killer called Charles Lee Ray for quite some time. And then I think you could have, in the opening levels, you could have him sort of actually protect the babysitter, protect his mother, and that could be the game. And then you could have towards the end, you could actually have, once the mother learns that Chucky's real, you could have that in the middle of the game. You could then have them actually take on Chucky and try to kill him in some way, shape or fashion, like they do in the original film. It takes quite a few efforts. So I just think you could make a really good survival horror game by, like, as I say, being Andy Barclay, protecting someone from Chucky and then killing Chucky at the end. I think it would make a really good game. I do. So, I mean, do you know what? I really do. I really do. If you disagree with me or agree with me, comment section below. I'd love to hear, what do you think of that? Would you be interested in that game if it was to ever somehow actually be made? Oh, yeah, you're behind me. So yes, that's my answer to that question. That's a great question, Nate, by the way. I really did spend a lot of time thinking about that and really enjoyed coming up with the answer. as well. Okay, so the next question I've got is from Chronik Spartan, who asked me, what is your favourite gaming year in memory? Now, Chronik Spartan does some fantastic stuff, by the way. He really puts a lot of effort into his production, and he really just covers a lot or a little bit of everything. So please do check out Chronik Spartan's channel. It's a fantastic channel. As I say, a lot of effort goes into all of his work. So please do check it out. So yes, favourite year in gaming. Now, I didn't want to sort of try and work out what year games were released and then tie myself down to year by what games were released within that year. Now, I can take probably what was my favourite year in gaming back to the year that I was last at college, and that was 1999. And largely the reason why I enjoyed 1999 so much and is one of my favourite years in gaming, because the college that I went to, the town had a Sega park in it. And being a massive arcade person, as I grew up on the arcade scene, being a massive Sega fan as well, I absolutely love the fact that there's a Sega park. I would spend my hours break there nearly every day, and I believe one day I would have a free period either side of my break, so I would have like a 3-hour spell where I could just sit in Sega Park for 3 hours and play the games. And it was just the games that was in there. It literally just... I've never known so much quality in one place at one time. The races that they had there, they had Daytona USA 2, they had Sega Rally, which in my eyes is the best Sega Rally game ever. They had Sega Touring Cars, which I absolutely loved as well. The music... if anybody had asked me what's my favourite music in gaming, the answer would have been Sega Touring Cars While You're Racing. All of the songs in that are absolutely fantastic. And of course, you had Crazy Taxi, the original Crazy Taxi in the arcade as well. They had that, which doesn't need any explanation as to how good that is, with the replayability factor in that is second to none. Absolutely adore Crazy Taxi. They had beat-em-ups in there as well. They had X-Men vs Street Fighter. They had Street Fighter EX plus Alpha as well, which I think is a little bit of an underrated game. I really do. Blow his head off. What else did they have? They had Virtua Tennis, the best tennis game of all time. They had Virtua Striker. They had version 98, which I absolutely loved. In fact, when they got version 99 in there as well at the same time, they had to leave version 98 in there because it was making so much money and it was so popular. It really was. They had Die Hard Arcade in there. They had shooters as well. What shooters did they have? They had House of the Dead 2, Time Crisis 2. It was literally just full of every amazing arcade game that was out at the time. And it was almost, for me, it was a great time for arcade games as well, with all of those out at the same time. Now, if you all just want to throw in the fact that my home console back then was the PlayStation 1, and I had Tekken, I had Crash Bandicoot, I had a Resident Evil game. You know, FIFA 98 Road to World Cup was my favourite FIFA, by the way, as well. So when I couldn't play Virtua Striker 2, at least I had that at home. You know, 1999 for me, and everything that I owned, and the fact that I had that Sega Park so accessible to me nearly on a daily basis, would always be 99 as one of my best years personally in gaming. So, yes, that is a great question. Honestly, I really enjoyed reliving the memories for that. So thank you so much for that question, Chronik Spartan. Okay, the next question comes from Scott Wall. Now, Scott Wall doesn't have a YouTube channel, but he is very, very active on Twitter, very active within the achievement hunting community as well. You can follow Scott on Twitter at @HeyIt'sMe _Scott. So please follow him on Twitter. Now, he quite simply asked me, what is your favourite wrestling game of all time? Now, he follows me on Twitter, and he's a subscriber to my channel as well, and he knows that as well as gaming and achievement hunting, I do like my wrestling. So he's asked me what my favourite wrestling game of all time is. Now, he's asked me what my favourite game is, and not necessarily what I think the best game of all time is. And I know the ones on the N64 are probably better, and also we've got the PS2 games, which are also better as well. You know, your shut your mouth and you know your role sort of games. But for me, my personal, as I say, it's a personal choice, my favourite wrestling game of all time, and it was hard to pick between this and the WrestleFest arcade game, but it just picked it for a couple of reasons, which I shall go into, and that is the original SmackDown game on the PlayStation 1. Like I just mentioned to you, I had a PlayStation 1 at home, and I enjoyed my wrestling, and the only wrestling game that I had was, to start with, was WWF Warzone. It was clunky, it was slow. You needed like a 10-button combination to perform a finishing move, which I had to look up and the only one that I could do and pull off every time was Mankind's one. And it was alright, I completed it. It wasn't an awful game, but at the same time it wasn't great. So when SmackDown came along, became a lot more arcadey, became much more simpler to use in its controls, had one button finishing moves, which you could just pull off, as I say, once you'd built up your SmackDown bar. Do you know what? There was me and mates used to play it for hours. You used to play ladder matches for absolute ages. And another factor in it being the reason why I absolutely love this game is, I don't know if it's his first appearance in a wrestling game. It may be, so maybe someone could tell me in the comment section below if I'm right or wrong. I'm probably wrong, I don't know. But I'm a massive Hardy Boys fan. I'm a massive Jeff Hardy fan. And it was the first time that I ever played as him in a wrestling game as well. And as I just absolutely adored that game. I know the second one came along was probably slightly better, and he was in that too. But just because that one came along first and it has more memories tied to it, I will always think that SmackDown, the first SmackDown game on the PlayStation 1, is my favourite wrestling game of all time. So I think, what have we got? We've got 2 questions left still. The next one is from the wonderful Tamaracade, who does funny reviews, does some serious reviews as well, and just generally, by the way, has a great channel and is very active again in the community on both YouTube and Twitter. So brilliant content. You know, I've probably said this to her loads of time, but her video on the Clockwork Knight, her comedy sort of review of Clockwork Knight, is one of my favourite videos on YouTube, and I regularly rewatch it. That I enjoy it that much. So please do visit Tamara's channel, and please do find that video as well. It is absolutely brilliant. So can we get in the cover and answer this? Read this question out. All right, let's get rid of you first. Okay, tomorrow's question is, congratulations. Thank you very much for that. Which of these 3 massive controllers do you think is the best N64 controller, Dreamcast controller, or the original Xbox Duke controller? Great question. Do you know what? I absolutely love this question because I have a little bit of experience with all of them. Despite never owning a Nintendo, I did have a mate who had a Nintendo 64, and we used to play a ton of Mario Kart 64, as you can imagine. So, which of those 3 do I think is the best? Well, I have to say that I would probably... I'm going to rule out the N64 one, but that is not for any discrimination reasons, to be honest with you. I've got nothing against the N64 controller. I think it's quite comfortable to hold, but I think that the reliability of the little joystick in the middle does let it down. And I don't find it as comfortable to hold as the other 2. Now, the Duke is absolutely nostalgically brilliant. I've got nothing against the Duke either. I think it's a great controller. Some people will disagree with me and will not like it, I must admit. But I absolutely love the Duke. There's nothing wrong with it. But of them 3 controllers, I must admit, I am going to have to pick the Dreamcast one. I think the Dreamcast one, for me personally, I found it the most comfortable to hold. The only nitpick I have with it is that the wire comes out the bottom. It'd been better if it come at the top. It had a little thing to hold it in the back, so that wasn't too much of an issue. But the VMU for me just makes it. It's just revolutionary. I mean, you can pull it out and play little things on it as well. And that was just fantastic. That was just an amazing little thing. As I say, it's so comfortable to control. The joystick on the left there was brilliant as well. It was really good to hold as well. Yeah, just I have to pick the Dreamcast controller out of those 3. And I was going to say, it's not an easy choice because the Duke is a beast, and it's an absolutely a beautiful controller as well. I do love the Duke, but for me, yeah, it has to be the Dreamcast controller. Okay, I did say 2 more. I actually have 2 more left now. Next one is from Martin, that UK gamer. If you had to collect one system's games and only one, what would it be? And no Xbox 360, because that's too obvious. Well, what can I say? Martin knows me well. I would absolutely pick the Xbox 360 in an instant, straight away. But, like he says, Xbox 360 isn't allowed, so I will adhere to his rules. And I am going to... My knee-jerk reaction was then to go for the Game Gear, because that's my console that I absolutely adore because of what it means to me. But then I realised that if I'm only going to play one console for the rest of my life, that means that's its library is all I'm ever going to play. That's all I'm ever going to collect. So it then got me thinking, and I thought of going for the PlayStation 1. However, I'm going to go for the Dreamcast. Again, I love the Dreamcast. I say, it was a horrible day for me when my Dreamcast broke down, which I still haven't replaced to this day. which, yes, is my own fault, and dive out of the way of that. It's my own fault, but I then got to thinking again just about the library that the Dreamcast has, and the library with the replayability factor of what it means to me. I like beat 'em ups. I like sports games that are arcadey. I like good, and it has all three of those with games that I could just replay again. Like I said, it has beat 'em ups. It has Marvel vs. Capcom. I believe it has Street Fighter Alpha 3. It has an awesome port of Soul Calibur. It does have Mortal Kombat Gold for your Mortal Kombat Gold fix. A game that I keep saying is a bit of a hidden gem, but everybody knows about it, so it's not a hidden gem, and that is the Power Stone games. Power Stone 1 and Power Stone 2. Both of them fantastic games, very unique fights where you're in a room and you can pick up objects to use in the fight and things like that. So yes, I would say Power Stone, to be honest with you, is one reason. Racers, sorry, a little sidetracked here by the big helicopter trying to shoot me through doors. But yes, racing games as well. I mean, it's got Daytona USA 2001. It's got Sega Rally, again, that awesome best rally game ever that I keep talking about. It's got a game called Sega GT, which is supremely underrated. Supremely underrated. And that is a great game too. Of course, it's got the legendary Crazy Taxi, but it's got the best port of it ever, if you ask me as well. It's got the original soundtracks by The Offspring and Bad Religion as part of it. So, it's just brilliant. And then I think of all the sports games it's got that I love. I've mentioned all of these earlier. It's got Virtua Tennis 1 and 2. It has Virtua Striker 2000, which is a game I absolutely love. I say it is personally my favourite football game of all time, believe it or not. I just love it that much. And yeah, I was going to say, the Dreamcast just has such a library that I just think I would never get bored of more than any other library. And that is pretty much the sole reason why I'm picking it, as I get hit by this geezer and trying to play Century, mate. So yes, my answer, if I can only collect for one system for the rest of my life, I suppose, and only one, it would have to be the Dreamcast. Okay, stuff's getting real here, and I'm finding it hard to answer questions and concentrate at the same time. So let's try and eliminate some grubs quickly before we read our last question. I can tell you the last question is by Sorax Space, who does some of the funniest game reviews on YouTube, period. He really does. They are brilliant, and I don't get tired of watching them. I can watch them over and over again. They are absolutely fantastic. So please do stop by and help him get to 1,000 subscribers. How he's not at 1,000 subscribers is totally beyond me. He really does deserve to be there. Anyway, the question from Sorax Space. Is there a game out there that you adore but the majority seem to dislike? And vice versa. Congrats on the 500 subs. Firstly, thank you for the congratulations, on the 500 subs. Again, absolutely blows my mind that I've got there, but I couldn't have done it without the help of the community. Now, games that everybody likes that I dislike, I can actually give you a couple of answers for each. And let me just start by stating that I know these are great games. I have nothing against these games. I think they are great games. They are just not my style. And please don't hate me, but I'm going to have to open with Zelda. I just don't like that style of game, and yet I know Zelda is the best at it, and I still don't like it. And that's just not because of the game. It's just because of the genre and the fact I do not like the genre. There is nothing else about it. However, another one that qualifies a little bit is the Mass Effect trilogy. I was really excited to crack on and play the Mass Effect trilogy, but sadly, after playing the first one for a couple of hours, I just couldn't get into it and I couldn't enjoy it. I know a lot of people say, you can sort of define your own way with all the questions that you can answer and the options that you can pick and all that. But I really wasn't interested in that. I just wanted to shoot things, and I must admit I found myself getting lost and not knowing what to do, and then end up getting frustrated with it. And I was thinking, I know the story and this is apparently supposed to be really good, even though the third one, the ending does get rather maligned from what I've heard. But as I say, I can't comment on that because I haven't played it through to a finish, and I will return to it someday because I want to finish them and perhaps give it a second chance. But I'm going to have to say, yeah, Mass Effect just never really did it for me. So the other way round. So is there games that I like that the majority dislike? Well, I wouldn't say the majority dislike, but they are not as liked as other examples of the games within the genres, should I say. And I think Pete from On a Retro Tip's going to like me saying this one, because I agree with him totally when he says Street Fighter EX plus Alpha. A lot of people sort of frown on it because it just wasn't what they expected. I think they expected it to be a Street Fighter game in the style of Tekken, but it wasn't. It was a Street Fighter game with sort of using the polygons rather than using the standard 2D sprites that we were always used to. But it is still a really good game. It's an absolutely fantastic game. And as I say, it used to be in that Sega part, which I spoke about earlier. And it was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. We're going to need a longer range weapon for that. Can't buy it because I haven't upgraded for Fabricator. So yes, I must admit, I really like Street Fighter EX plus Alpha. But as a Street Fighter game goes, it's not very well liked. Have to be honest with you. And the other one that I'm going to pick up on is, again, I'm going to go back to the football game that I've already mentioned, and that is Virtua Striker 2. Now, the reason why I say, you know, it's not, I wouldn't say universally disliked, perhaps, but it's obviously, it's not a PES game, it's not a FIFA game. Those are your two popular ones, obviously by the millions of units and the fact they've always been going, you know. So, for me to turn around and say I like Virtua Striker more than them, even, you know, when there's even other football games that you'd think I would put in front of it, then a lot of people are baffled by that. But I say I prefer my sports games to be arcadey, and Virtua Striker 2, specifically the version 98 version, I just absolutely adored. And people laugh at me when I actually even consider putting it in like some of my top games of all time, just because it meant that much to me, and I enjoyed it that much. But don't worry, it's there are plenty of other games out there that's going to keep a game like Virtua Striker out of my top 5. But top 5 sports games, top 5 football games, it's in the top 5s, and football game wise, it is my favourite. And it's not a FIFA game. It's not a PES game, even though a PES game comes second. ISIS Pro 98 comes second for me when we talk about football games. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the last question. That's the last question, and we've nearly got through the first boss wave here, I think. As I say, it's on casual, so hopefully he won't take long. But ladies and gentlemen, that has been my 500 sub Q&A special. I must admit, I got a little bit tired towards the end and got a little bit waffly, and my words went a little bit all over the place. And also, maybe playing a game and concentrating on that at the same time as trying to concentrate on answers to the questions wasn't the brightest of ideas, but I have had a lot of fun answering those questions. The questions were brilliant. Thank you so much to everybody who contributed a question and thought of one, as both my weapons are empty. I really have enjoyed this. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for watching. I'm going to play this and beat this Kestrel, but I'm going to sign out from this video now by again thanking you for watching, thanking you for being a subscriber, thank you for everybody contributing a question. Please check out every channel in the description below for people that have contributed a question. And then finally, as always, take care.